what are the risks?
As we've transitioned from owning nothing and owning a few things to owning 27 catalogs, we invested $25 million to get 7,000 songs, is we've tried to be diversified. So if we only owned one artist, Michael Jackson or something, that at a high price, then that would be risky. Meaning, we try to avoid over investing in one catalog and overpaying, which is obviously a big risk in any business if you overpay for that trophy property. And the third thing I think is not using debt. So a lot of times, the primary risk for most assets, and real estate especially, is that it's based on interest rates that are tied to the debt. So when the debt's due, then where's it going to come from? So we've tried to avoid all those things to minimize the risk. And then when it comes down to operations, because we're a royalty business, it's really just Connor and I and the help we get from other people, part-time CFO, collection. So it's a de minimis overhead, probably all in, including audit and legal, about $300,000. So having no debt and a little overhead or small overhead is the essence of creating a high margin business. So and we've already covered the point about being hassle free, because all the work is being done at the band level or at the music company level.
So you're saying there's essentially not going to be a liquidity risk because you guys are debt free, right? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, that's right. No debt.
Good. No debt. That's actually very, very important, especially for somebody who's in real estate. I know how that feels like. Okay, so debt free, and you guys have minimum expense. You are trying to minimize your overhead, and you guys are not involved in operations, so your overhead is minimized, and so you can maximize the dividend. And also, you are trying to diversify as much as you can in the still hitting your criteria, so that way you're reducing the risk. Now, all makes sense to me. I just want to point out that there's still risk that you guys could take the money and run, right? So I just want to make it clear that there is a possibility like this for any company out there. So people who are listening to this, they have to judge for themselves. Now, I happen to talk to your other shareholders and long-term, I guess, family friends of yours. And the answer I got is you guys are legit people. You guys have been doing this for quite a few years, didn't miss.
And also, just to add on to that, like, what is our incentive structure? Because there are no management fees.
Oh yeah, that's
shareholders. We are shareholders. So our incentive is to increase the dividend.
Okay. I forgot to ask that. That's very
important. I think the mutual goal here is to say that we can't get bigger without you. And anytime something's bigger, it's worth more than the smaller version of it. So this is truly designed to be a virtual partnership where anybody can contribute, including the artists. And then when you talk about the globalization, yeah, if you're saying from a diversification perspective, if we could get a piece of Bollywood, colloquially speaking, via Brampton to appeal to 1 billion Indians, that would be great. If we could get the best, Asian wedding songs, or a piece of K-pop, piece of Africa or Brazilian hip hop, all of those things, are on the trajectory, so that it's sort of a perpetual growing, acquisition driven portfolio. And, we benefit as much from bringing you in as a partner and your clients to anybody that they may know. So that's the win-win about it. And as far as your point about taking the money and run, I would say it's not so easy in this business, because as we told you, you have to assign the cash flow, the title, from one entity to another. So it's not, a single asset situation. There's 7,000 songs, right?
Right. True.
And maybe one last thing. So the other thing I think is important to point out is in REITs and in mixed in private real estate situations, the returns are not apples to apples. And obviously there's been a decent run for 10 years up until recently for real estate. But a lot of times, the return that's paid out, can be a return of capital, or a third of it could be driven by the fact that there's leverage. So, our clean cash flow dividend, is quite different than something that's, at the same price. If we're paying 6% and the REIT's paying 6%, but 2% of it's coming from a return on capital, another 2% is coming because it's levered, to 75%, then you can't compare the two yields at all. Look, the idea behind royalties as an asset class is what we're advocating as well. So the risks of a normal business, all the moving parts, usually with leverage, lots of employees that come and go, changing products, competition, you have all of those things to face. If you just take a percentage of the revenues, 1 or 2% of the revenues in your typical royalty situation, whether that's in mining or drug royalties or entertainment royalties, using our example, then you're not faced with all that volatility of the expenses, right? So that's the first thing. But the second thing that makes entertainment royalties, or this genius of copyright, so amazing is, we went from the world of mining, gold royalties, if you will, where the typical life before it's fully depleted is going to be 10, 15 years, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. But it's literally, it's gone. You collect and you match your cash flow and your investment goals around that expiry. It's gone. You could say you invent something in the medical world, cure for cancer. You're only protected for 17 years under patent law. 17 years. This is the life of author plus 70. So everything's over 100 years. So it's off the charts for that long tail cash flow compared to every other asset that we're aware of with no maintenance.